Right, so next we have Martin Kuvandzhiev. Is Martin? There he is. So he's very interesting because he's the core developer for Bitcoin Gold, which is one of the hard forks of Bitcoin. It's a competing version of Bitcoin. So it's quite interesting. We have one of the core developers amongst us. He's won a number of awards, so he's a very strong computer science background, and he'll be speaking about cryptocurrencies as opposed to fiat currencies and why governments are so upset about it. So please welcome on stage Martin.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're fine. It's a bit early in the morning for the blockchain people, but I think it's good enough. Thank you for being here. So, today we're going to talk a bit about the cryptocurrencies versus fiat currencies, and what are the differences, and actually why the cryptocurrencies exist. So, let's start with what is a currency. It is just, in the moment, it is just a system of monetary units. It is used to exchange goods, services, and other currency. And there are actually a lot of currencies around the world. I think that there are over 100 currencies currently. But let's see what is the currency over the years. Let's start with the first currency that is marked in the history. It is the temple granaries in Sumer. Actually, what is this? For example, you are living currently in Sumer and you have a lot of grain and you want to put it somewhere. And then they have told you that if you go and put your grain in the temple, you're going to take a note with the amount of grain that you have. And then with this note, you can just go again to the temple and get your granary back. You can go and exchange these notes and take other goods if you want. This is the first form in the history of currency because you can use it to buy another things, to exchange goods. Then we go to oxide ingots, which are actually very large metal pieces that were used again as a currency for trading between ships and between people. And they have been used, but they're not practical because they're really, really large. Actually, there have been again notes that are telling, okay, this guy has, for example, 5 ingots and the other guy has 3 ingots. And they were exchanging actually the notes about these ingots and how many they have. Then we have the manila currency. Actually, manilas, they're like bracelets. And people were exchanging bracelets. They had holders for these bracelets, and they have been using them again for exchanging goods and services. We're going to the coin age. Everyone started to have, actually to put a value to the different metals based on the fact how rare are these metals. And we have the golden age, we have the silver age, and people were using gold, silver, bronze used for exchanging goods and services. And then we go to the first paper money and the banknotes. Actually, what is a banknote? It is again just a note that is making a statement that you have exact amount of gold in the banks. This is where these words come from. So the paper money, the things that currently we use. But in the beginning, they were backed by gold. And currently, they're again stated to be backed by gold, but this is actually not sure. No one can say, okay, this is backed by gold and this is not, because this is the world we live in. This is the fiat currency. Okay, I told you about banknotes. We have the government, we have the banks, and the accounts. The governments actually decide what is the fiat currency of a given country. For example, in Bulgaria we use leva. If you go to the United States, you're going to use US dollars. If you go to Germany, you're going to use euro for a currency. All these currencies are actually defined and they are decided by the governments. But who controls this money? Actually, the banks controls them. Because in order to make a transaction, for example, you're going to pay in the web for a service or for a good or whatever, You must have a bank account, you must have a bank card, everything is controlled by the bank. And currently, most of the people are using bank cards for making the everyday transactions. Actually, only 13 to 30% of the everyday transactions are done in cash. 6% of the person-to-person, peer-to-peer transactions are done in cash. And all the others are actually done by bank cards. And if we actually even go to see how people are paying their bills, 49% of the iPhone users are actually paying their bills using their iPhones. It is 30% of the Android users are doing the same. You can see how good we are with the digitalization of currencies and of the money flow. Let's see how is actually the current fiat currency system working. We have, for example, in your top left, we have, for example, Bob, who wants to pay for its, let's say, to his home. He wants to pay his rent. He must use the bank. Is there anyone that can actually go and, for example, if you're renting a house somewhere, can you pay your rent using another method that is not bank? How many of you pay in cash for their... Okay. Okay, I think something like 10%. You're using the banks. And what is the tax? For example, you have to send 500 leva. What is the tax? It is something between, it can be free if the receiving person is in your bank, but typically you must pay something between 1 leva or 2 leva. It is just a typical tax. For example, if you go to buy a car from outside Bulgaria, for example, from Italy, it is a very typical case, and you want to make the transaction, you must pay something like 1% of the transaction to the bank. And for example, you're taking a car for 10,000 euro, and you must pay 100 euro just for making a transaction using this bank, which is actually not okay for me. It is not cool. And yeah, government and control. Actually, as I said, the governments are defining the official currency of a country. And also, the money have some value. And this value, actually, the whole money value is determined by the central banks, because they control the interest rates, and that way they control inflation and deflation of a given currency. So one wrong decision can actually bring a lot of problems for the normal people. It can cause hyperinflation. I said about the fees, between 0.15 and 2%, these are official numbers, are going for taxes. And also it is very important to say about the merchants, the people that you're getting goods from, are paying something like 3% to the banks just for accepting, for example, contactless or just card transactions. So, some possible problems. Wrong decision by the central bank. If this happens, it is really, really small chance to happen. It can cause hyperinflation. When a hyperinflation comes, you're just going to lose all your savings. There are frauds. Again, it is the bank system. It is said to be secure, but very recently we had a problem for a person that have sent to another person coins, and the other person should send money to his account. He started the sending of the money was shown as pending transaction in the bank account, but the transaction were cancelled. Who is bearing responsibility? Bitcoin transactions are irreversible. They cannot be reversed. They cannot be cancelled once sent. But the bank transaction, in some cases, in some banks, in some systems, they can be cancelled. There are again scams. The scams, if you have been to London subway, London Underground, there are people that are actually using very large antennas to scan your contactless cards, and that's where they're making transactions. So, for example, like you have paid on some store or whatever, and that way they're scamming you, stealing money. And also we have the bank system malfunction problem. For example, you want to pay something, but the server of your bank is down. What you're doing at that moment, you cannot do anything, you just wait. And here it is. We have to trust the banks and the other authorities that they are going to do their job well. Because it is all about trust. Let's turn to the other page, cryptocurrency. What is cryptocurrency? It is digital asset, first of all. There is no government, there is no banks. There are no banks, and it is said to be anonymous. Actually, it is pseudo-anonymous for the most of the currencies, but the other are completely anonymous, like Zcash and Monero. Here is a typical transaction in the cryptocurrency. We have Alice that wants to send money to Bob, and this is how it happens. Alice goes to her computer and then makes the transactions to the address of Bob. This transaction is beamed to the network. It is not a single place to send this transaction and to be cancelled, but you're sending it to a whole network of computers. And then you have the mining process. People are starting, actually, tons of terawatts are used to get a single hash to find a single block to put this transaction. This in the Bitcoin network happens in average every 10 minutes. When this block is found, it is again validated cryptographically in the network to be proved that it is correct. And from that moment on, Bob can spend the money that he has received from Alice. The whole process takes something between 1 and 30 minutes for transactions. And the network doesn't care how large is the transaction. For example, you can send $1, you can send $1 million. And there will be absolutely no difference for the network what is the amount that you're sending. And these are the crypto payments. You have seen that when we have the banks, we have a central authority that is authorizing all the transactions and that is making the movements between the accounts. In the cryptocurrency, we don't have one single point of failure. We have thousands of nodes. These are the different mining machines. Let's say mining machines, they are not, but let's say that they are called like that. We have different nodes that are thousands around the world, and they are validating all the transactions over the network. And this way, they're proving cryptographically that all of the transactions are correct. So there is no trust in the Bitcoin network. Once you send a transaction, it is not revertible, and you cannot just say to someone, okay, I have sent you the transactions, I don't know where it is. Because if you have sent it, you can go and check. You're opening just a random blockchain site, for example, which is having the Bitcoin ledger, the Bitcoin blockchain. You just type the transaction ID, and you see who has sent the transactions, who is the recipient of the transactions, how much time has passed from the transactions time that it was sent, and you can see how many confirmations it has. And that way, you don't have the middleman. So you don't have to trust someone. You just open the site and you check the information. The value of the cryptocurrencies, it is 100% determined by the market. If the people like something, for example, people want to buy today Ethereum because it has some very nice update or whatever, they can just go and buy it. And this, if there are not that many people that want to sell Ethereum, for example, the price of the Ethereum rises. There is no control over the currencies. Actually, the thing that controls all of the currencies, the cryptocurrencies, this is the code that is written in the software. So what is the code is the law. This is the most important thing. If you don't believe that someone is working some way, you can, if you're a developer, you can just open the source code and check how the consensus works. Or you can just pay to a developer to tell you how it works. And something very important is that volatility of 15+% per day is absolutely normal. Like Ivan Vankov said, today you're a millionaire, the other day you cannot buy a bread, and the day after that you're a millionaire again. It is something very typical in the cryptocurrency market. Transaction fees, they're paid to miners. They're not paid to banks, government, or whatever. If you want your transactions to arrive faster, you must pay a higher fee. And still, in the network, it is possible to make no-fee transactions. For example, you can send $1 million without applying any fee, 0% fee, 0 USD fee. The network is cryptographically secure. Malfunction of one of the nodes cannot interact on the whole network. And privacy must be kept secure. If you lose your private key, it is very, very bad. The risks of this network is volatility, hackers, and scams. You can get scammed very easily on the internet if you don't know how to protect your private key. Why the government and banks are not happy? Because they cannot control it. Because it is a new system that is actually beamed to the network. All of the rules are determined by the code. There is no one to trust. And that is why they are not that happy. Also, there is no regulation. Actually, the thing that is probably worst at the moment. We have anonymity in the networks, which is making it hard for the government to know who has how much money. Also, there is no good method for having something to have against the money laundering. For example, if someone wants to make money laundering, he can really, really easily make it using the cryptocurrency. For example, Bitcoin or Monero or Zcash. And also the governments and banks are not happy because people get scammed. Actually, millions and millions of US$ were lost from people who have just put their private key in the web and they have lost all their savings. Thanks. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Martin. So my question is, I mean, governments and banks, when you cut them out, what do they do, right? Because they don't like, no one likes being cut out. So what do you think they're going to do? Are they going to ban it, or?
Actually, the banks, okay, I agree that it is not only the Bitcoin, the Ethereum, or whatever cryptocurrency. It is about the technology. The technology is great. It is public, it is cryptographically secure, it cannot be cheated. So I think that governments and banks that are developed enough, they're going to develop their own solutions for transactions, which will be awesome. And for example, China government were not happy about the cryptocurrencies, they have banned it. Why they have banned it? Because they don't know who has whatever amount of money in their bank accounts, and they cannot control it. They can have millionaires in their country, and this is a problem for the government.
So it makes it difficult to trace, makes it difficult to tax, to control. Yes. Amazing.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with Bitcoin Gold. What are you up to?
Bitcoin Gold, actually, it was a fork of the Bitcoin network, and let's think why we have made it. We have made it because there are factories that are mining cryptocurrencies, mostly in China. Maybe some of you know the company Bitmain. And they can make 51% attack on the blockchain network. What is 51% attack? It is just to start making, actually, they can get transactions out. For example, they don't like me, they know my address where I receive Bitcoin. And the things that they do is just to say, okay, we're not going to mine transactions to this address. And they can start manipulate the whole network. So we have changed the proof of work algorithm of Bitcoin from SHA-256 to Equihash. That's on every computer or every even phone or whatever device, even on your TV, if you have a smart TV, you can start mining Bitcoin Gold and take profit from the network. That was our initial idea. And the experience is nice because the people are accepting this very, very good. And we have a lot of people that believe in our project, and it is a large international project. Actually, up to that moment, we're one of the top currencies that are regaining value from the markets, from the crash that happened in the last 3 months.
Cool. Thanks.
So censorship resistance, and you're rebelling against the Bitcoin, basically.
Actually, we do not rebel against the Bitcoin because we like Bitcoin. It is an awesome network, but we rebel from the people that are making business out of the network, because this is the problem, that many people try to get more money by investing or manipulating the Bitcoin value or network or whatever. We do not like that. We think that the currency, the cryptocurrency, is for the ordinary people. It is not only for the companies just to make profit out of it. It is for the people who want to have a decentralized system. This is decentralization. Everyone in the network matters, not only the large companies.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. Wish you all the best.